I believe good government comes down to leaders that care more about addressing problems than what their party thinks or what partisan individuals think. But I will give this warning. If you are not ready to be fully immersed in what you do, then being a county commissioner may not be something you want to consider. It is easier if you ask questions than if you make accusations. I love what I do. I make a difference in people's lives almost every day, and I, Lord willing, will be here and finish my career as a county commissioner here in Berks County. I enjoy it very, very much.
Welcome to The Good Government Show. I'm your host, Dave Martin. On this episode of The Good Government Show, we're talking with our good friend, Berks, Pennsylvania County Commissioner Christian Leinbach. Christian and I have talked many times, and we always have lively conversations, and this episode is no different. Reading is their largest city in Berks County, and as you hear, Christian is working on reviving what was the old Reading Railroad. You know, the Reading Railroad, the Monopoly train. Anyway, the new train not be called the Reading Railroad, but it will run through Reading if Commissioner Leinbach is successful. He's up for re-election for his fifth time to county commissioner, and Christian and I talked a little bit about voter integrity and how the voting process actually works. There is no voter fraud in Berks County. It's all under control. Don't worry. We also get an update on one of our first good government projects we highlighted on this show. It's called the R3 program. This teaches the construction trade to men and women who are in and all trying to stay out of the criminal justice system. It's a program that's still going strong. We always like to hear about good government projects we told you about that are still working. So join me as I talk with our good friend, Commissioner Christian Leinbach on The Good Government Show. And we'll be back with that conversation right after this. The Good Government Show is sponsored by NACo. That's the National Association of Counties. County government is actually the oldest form of government in the United States, and it touches more people directly. Roads, highways, hospitals, schools, recycling, law enforcement, water and sewers. In most of the country, those services are maintained by the county. That's county government. NACo is a nationwide organization that represents all 3,069 counties across the USA. NACo helps county government work better together through things like sharing best practices, because when county government works well, that's just good government. Welcome to The Good Government Show. I'm your host, Dave Martin, and on this show, we have one of the best friends of The Good Government Show, our friend, Christian Leinbach. Christian, welcome. County Commissioner Christian Leinbach of Berks County. Welcome.
David, great to be on the show.
We got into a little bit of politics before we turned the microphone off, so we're going to try to veer away from that because that's when we need a long meal and not a lot of people around us, right?
That's true. What we do need are more county leaders who are less likely to focus on party and much more likely to focus on problem solving.
Yes, I can certainly agree with that. And I just want to point out that for regular listeners of The Good Government Show, all of you should pay very close attention because there would be no Good Government Show without Christian Leinbach. And let me just go into our birthing story. One of my partners here on The Good Government Show, a friend of yours, Jim, said, So what is it you county commissioners do anyway? And you said, well, if you can answer that question and create a television show around that, you know what? You'll have county government in your pocket. And that's led us here. Is that our fair creation story version?
That's the quickest version of it. But for our purposes, it is absolutely a clear explanation.
Yes. So thank you for inspiring us to be here. And thank you for coming on and always supporting the show. So welcome, Christian.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's just talk a little bit about what's going on in Berks County. First, one of the reasons why we're glad to have you back is we did a show several seasons ago on something called the R3 program, Berks Connections, Pretrial Services, just an inspired program. You have two very dynamic women who are running the show. Why don't you explain a little bit to our folks what this is and how it's going? Give me an update.
Sure. Well, the Dynamic Women, I saw both of them on Friday. Peggy and Nikki are co-executive directors. This is a program that began with a federal grant back in 2017, and it is about taking individuals that are coming out of the criminal justice system, either out of our county jail or more recently coming out of what we call our treatment courts. And treatment courts, a DUI court, mental health court, veterans court, et cetera. And it's alternative to sentencing in that particular case. And what we focus on are the trades. Now, these individuals aren't going to become certified electricians or carpenters or masons, but they get training over an 8-week period through Associated Builders and Contractors, Habitat for Humanity, and the Reading Berks Muhlenberg Technology School. And they get some hands-on experience. In addition to that, they also get training in how to change your thinking,
right?
How you're facing life,
how do you not go back?
Yeah, and showing up exactly.
Yeah,
good common sense stuff. And this is
that's the hardest part, really. Is you show up on time.
It is.
You bring your lunch. You bring your work boots. Right.
Right. And the thing that's been really amazing, it's been an enormous success. When we talk about measuring success, probably the number one piece of data we look at is recidivism.
Right.
That's a long word for people that are in jail, out of jail, go back to jail, et cetera. Our recidivism rate for individuals going through this program is under 7%, which
impressive.
Is just huge.
I think the national average is like 60% or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. People that are in and out and frequent flyers in the system. This past week,
so nationally it's at 60%, and in Berks County, thanks to the R3 program, it's at like 7%.
Correct, and specifically people that go through this program. So this
has anyone picked up on? I'm sorry, has anyone picked up on this program?
The state has. We actually, through the state Department of Labor and Industry, have been recognized as the first I don't want to say non-trades, but an apprenticeship program outside of union apprenticeship or construction trades. This is the only one tied to criminal justice system, in this case, a program like R3. So yes, there's been recognition. I'm
doing it.
I'm not aware of any other counties doing it right now. It takes a financial commitment from the county. That grant went away after 3 years, and we decided as Berks County
to keep funding.
We wanted to continue to fund it. So we fund about 50% of the total costs of the program. And they're able, BCPS, Berks Connection Pretrial Services, are able to raise the other money through some grants, through contributions. But this past week, I spoke at the 32nd graduating class. And for those that may wonder, is this just something you're pushing people through? We had 8 graduates. I'm not sure of the number, but there were 12 or 13 that started the program. You don't automatically graduate because you enrolled in the program. Yeah. You have to go through, you take a test in the beginning. Most people fail the test in the beginning, and you have to pass the test in the end. But it's been really, really good to see. We had. So I'm sorry
that you said that this is the 37th graduating class?
32nd.
32nd. Sorry.
Yes,
and how many classes per year do you go through at Berks?
It depends, but there are normally about 6 classes, 7 sometimes in the course of a year. It's continual.
So that's an average of like 60 people a year that go through the program.
Yeah.
That's and with a 7% recidivism rate. Now I talked to one guy who wound up working in the restaurant industry, but quite successfully. I think he was a cook in a vegetarian place in town. Do you know where these guys go to work?
We do. And this is the other neat thing about the program. When they graduate and they get a job, and most of them get a job right away, BCPS does not say, thank you, good to see you, have a great day. They stay, a caseworker stays connected to that worker and the company they go to for 1 year. And they tell the company when they're hired, if you have any issues, reach out to us. We're here to support you as well as the individual that you hired. And it's been good. I've talked to graduates that have been out of the program for several years that still have a relationship with Berks Connection Pretrial Services because they realize it changed their life.
Yeah, no, I talked to a couple of guys that said that. Well, that is good news. That is good government at its finest, and it's working. And it all started with two women who said there must be a better way.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, good to hear that the R3 program is alive and well and on track. Now, I know that, we've talked about this, in the past several times. You have been working on rail service into and out of Berks. I guess, are you a Philadelphia suburb?
Not really. Berks is in an odd spot.
Yeah.
Western Berks probably connects more with the Harrisburg and Central PA area, and Eastern Berks connects more with Southeastern Pennsylvania and the Philly suburbs. But what we are, Reading is the fourth largest city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And historically, it has been connected from a transportation standpoint, rail, the Reading Railroad to Philadelphia. SEPTA in the late 70s took over that line, and that was the connection to Philadelphia.
So you're trying to restore train service from Berks, from Reading into Philadelphia. Right. How's it going? Can I get my Amtrak ticket anytime soon?
It's pretty amazing. I wouldn't buy my Amtrak ticket quite yet.
Okay.
But historically, there have been numerous studies, government-funded studies, since the early 90s trying to deal with the restoration of passenger rail. There's two things that are very different this time. One, we are doing this not just as Berks County, but we're working together with Montgomery County and Chester County. They're two counties that border Berks on the eastern border.
So for those folks who don't know, Berks County is sort of in eastern central Pennsylvania, and It's more or less a direct line sort of east and south to Philadelphia. So it's sort of a natural corridor. Is that fair?
That's correct. And the reason we've connected together, each county has a municipality that once had the same service we had. Montgomery County, Kutztown Borough, and no longer has service. And Chester County, Phoenixville Borough, that no longer has service. And we've been able to come together in a way that's never been done before. First as a committee in 2021, and then by 2022, June of 2022, all three counties voted to form the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority. Since then, we've begun working with Amtrak, and what we're looking at is a line that you could get on an Amtrak train in Reading, Pennsylvania, with stops in Pottstown, Phoenixville, potentially Norristown, Philadelphia, but it ultimately would be a one ride where you get on the train, you don't get off till you would get off at Moynihan Station in downtown New York City, Manhattan.
So I can come visit you more.
Absolutely. And I can come visit you.
There you go. All right. Now we're talking.
That's the way to go to New York. You don't want to drive your car into New York.
Why do that when you can take the train? I take the train regularly. I live in New York City. I take the train to Washington. I wouldn't go any other way. So
yeah, yes, we're at a unique point in this effort. We filed an application with the Federal Rail Administration in March of this year for something called the Corridor ID program. And that is the critical next step in looking at potential additional Amtrak lines across the country.
Would this open Berks up to better development and creating like a Philadelphia suburb, and with more citizens, with more industry, with more residents, with more housing?
Yeah, in fact, that's how I tell people to look at it. So many people say to me from Berks, you really think there's that many people from Berks County that want to go to New York or to Philadelphia? And I tell them, you're looking at this the wrong way. It's not so much about us going someplace as much as it is as opening up our economy to the largest economy in the Western Hemisphere. And that is the area between Washington and Boston. You look at Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast United States, this kind of train service opens us up to that area. So absolutely, there is a real opportunity for economic growth and development beyond being a suburb of Philadelphia. It connects us really to the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic United States in a really big way.
But if you can't take a train, can I fly into Reading?
You can fly into Reading if you're flying a charter flight, or you're flying corporately, or you happen to have your own plane. We do have the Reading Regional Airport.
We are not that big a podcast yet.
Yeah, we do not have commercial air service.
I know that in Berks County, one of the issues that you've been working on is expanding the Reading Regional Airport.
Yes.
Do people want to fly into Reading? Is there regular commercial service in the future there?
There is interest. We are talking with a couple of entities right now. One, a possible startup of several flights a week between Reading and Orlando, Florida. Another that we're talking to are a number of flights a month between Reading and Puerto Rico. For those that may not know, Reading in particular is one of the highest percentage of Latino population in the Northeast. Almost 70% of the population is Latino.
Oh.
And when you look at the breakdown, the three big groups are Puerto Rican, Dominican Republic, and Mexican. And there is a lot of interest in the connection to Puerto Rico. My colleague, Commissioner Michael Rivera, was raised in Puerto Rico. His wife grew up in Puerto Rico as well. And he goes back to Puerto Rico on a regular basis.
All right. Are you trying to expand all services at the airport? Is it a job creator? Is this a place where people, is there economic development tied to all this?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Early this year, PennDOT, and this will sound initially confusing, but PennDOT has a Bureau of Aviation. PennDOT being Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. They have a Bureau of Aviation, and they looked at all of the airports in Pennsylvania, general aviation, commercial, et cetera. And they listed the top 12 airports by economic impact. We are 12.
Okay.
Out of 100 and some airports. And of the 12, only 10, well, there are 10 that have a regular commercial air service. There are only 2 of us that do not. Our economic impact is about $77 million in our region that are directly attributed to the airport. There's a couple of things, though, that we've done because we initiated a study on the airport, and it showed that over the last 20 years, flight activity on an average daily basis has been declining. If you ignore that, over time, you lose your airport.
Sure.
And you lose an airport for Berks County, that would be a real problem to our community and overall economic development. So ultimately what we did, we offered a different model. This airport was run by 7 appointed volunteers, Airport Authority. In 2022, they willingly resigned their position. The county appointed the 3 commissioners and our chief operations officer. we then rewrote the bylaws so that going forward, the county just doesn't arbitrarily appoint, but now the bylaws of the airport require the members to be a total board of 5, the 3 sitting commissioners, the sitting chief operations officer or his or her equal, and the sitting director of community and economic development or his or her equal. We're now implementing an economic development strategy, and we are acquiring 2 of the fixed-based operators at the airport so that we will create 1 county-owned fixed-based operation. Now, the airport has been owned by the county for the last several decades.
So it sounds like what you're doing here is you're just streamlining the entire process and making it a little bit simpler, a few less people, and bringing in professionals to actually run the airport.
And because we're full-time, we went from 1 meeting a month to 2 meetings a month. We heard from the tenants, and there are quite a few of tenants there. They can range from significant corporate tenants to somebody who has their own personal plane there. We put together a tenant advisory committee. So in 1 meeting a month, it's the 3rd Tuesday of the month, they have an opportunity to address the board, bring up any issues or concerns that they have, and they have a seat at the table, which historically they've not.
This is what's fascinating to me about people like you in your position. We've talked about a recidivism program for people in the criminal justice system, airport management, extension of rail lines. And, how does somebody pivot from, one thing to another? I mean, you didn't come into this knowing anything about airport or railroad operations, and we haven't even talked about sanitation. We haven't talked about parks. We haven't talked about roads. How does a county commissioner stay on top of all of this?
The one thing that I think is important, it's what I love most about being a county commissioner, is that one day you can be dealing with Veterans Affairs, another day you're dealing with the jail and criminal justice reform, and you may be dealing with trains, planes, and automobiles. The variety to me is very exciting and fascinating. But I will give this warning. If you are not ready to be fully immersed in what you do, then being a county commissioner may not be something you want to consider. This is all that I do. And so I have the time to dig in and learn what I need to learn. Now, here's the key.
Do you read books for fun, or are you sitting home reading like how to manage airports manuals?
Well, I do a lot of reading on airports and passenger rail, but what's more important is I'll never know what the experts know. So I need to be able to bring the right people in. When we tackled this airport issue, we hired an aviation attorney that knew the aviation law. We hired.
You still have to know how to ask them the right questions.
Yes, because I want to see the data. I don't want to make decisions on, well, I feel like this is a good idea, or in my gut, I think we're going to win. Those are the kinds of things that take gamblers into Gamblers Anonymous. You can't do that kind of stuff. We're not going to gamble with the future of our county or with our taxpayers' money.
All right, so I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you $1 million idea. When you play Monopoly, you get to buy the Reading Railroad. So are we going to get what's his name, Johnny Big Bucks, to come out and promote the new Reading Railroad and have a little Monopoly car as your logo? We may do that. We thought about it when we named the Passenger Rail Authority. Yeah.
We tried to get Reading in there, but then we recognized we're working with Montgomery County, and we're working with Chester County. They've got Phoenixville and Pottstown.
All right. Well, there's other, what is there? There's the 20th Century Limited and the Crescent Special. There's all kinds of cool names.
The Gulf Coast Special.
Right. Exactly. So the Reading Railroad Special. I don't know, something like that. We'll, to be discussed. We'll have to.
Yeah,
after one of those deals we discussed earlier, it kicked through all that. Now, I know, Commissioner, you've got an election coming up, and I want to ask you a little bit about that because Certainly, there's been a lot of controversy nationally about the election security and election integrity. How can you work to make sure that people understand that we do have an unfettered, free, and fair election, certainly at the county level?
Well, I think one thing that is vitally important, there are 3,069 counties, and one of the great security components of elections in the United States is that they are not centralized.
Right.
The election isn't being run in Washington, D.C., and all the results being tallied in Washington, D.C. In fact, in most counties, those totals are being determined outside of what we call provisional ballots and mail-in ballots. The in-person voting is being determined on election day at the various precincts. So you look at Berks County, we have 201 precincts. Those precincts get their data, they figure out their numbers before they come into the county services center or a county ag center on election night with their materials. But these election totals are determined and certified at the county level. That makes it difficult, extremely difficult for somebody to come in and want to impact statewide races. It's not like they can go to some data center in Harrisburg and now manipulate all the numbers. I know some people think that, but that's not the way it works.
How do you combat the massive disinformation that, some sides are putting out, like early and often?
It's very difficult. If you look not just at Pennsylvania, but across the country, counties across the country have lost over the last several years a lot of institutional knowledge because election directors and election staff have walked away.
How about you? Have you had that?
We lost a 30-year election director just prior to the 2020 election, and we've gone through 3 since. Now I feel good about where we are right now.
They just said, I don't need this hassle.
I don't need this crap.
Were there any?
This is crazy.
I know that in some places, some people who run elections have been threatened and they've had security issues. Yeah. Did you have any of that?
Not really. And what's important, when we're running for re-election, we do not serve as the election board, but all the other years, when we're not running, I actually serve on the election board. So we're dealing with election requests, accusations, challenges, etc. And so I'm very aware of what goes on. It's important that you have very good legal people on your staff that understand the election law. 2, I found it's important as a rule not to answer any questions quickly, and by quickly, off the cuff.
All right.
You need to dig in and look at what our policy says, look at what the law says, but I don't think it's going to get easier, at least in the foreseeable future. We're in a very tough environment.
Yes.
And I could go into why I think that is, but the reality is counties run elections. There are 3,069 separate counties, and each of those counties are the ones pulling their results together, ultimately certifying their results within the context of the law. And that in and of itself makes it very, very difficult for a lot of this idea of massive election fraud to occur. One other thing I will say, none of the election machines, the electronic machines across the country, are connected to the internet. That's another thing that is just widely misunderstood. They are not allowed to be connected to the internet. When Homeland Security, and they have a tool that they've run for a number of years, will do a cybersecurity test of all your election equipment in a county. One of the things they make sure is that that equipment is not able to connect in any way, wireless, hardwire, to the internet, because that would be an enormous risk.
Have you had to change any of your operations as a result of the massive misinformation that's been, put out there in the last few years?
I think the only, and I don't know if I would say that massive misinformation on the drop boxes, we out of the gate, when we put in our drop boxes, and we have 2 of them, we had sheriff's deputies there for security purposes while they're open. Last year, we added 24/7 video.
Okay.
We had a number of people ask, can you do that? And initially, I was opposed to it because all that video does is confirm something bad happened. But it made people feel better that we're videotaping these 24/7, and we archive the footage for a period of time. That was probably the only change I can think of. Now, I do want to acknowledge that while counties run elections, state legislators are responsible for, and the governor, for the law. So there are things that need to be changed. Pennsylvania, last summer, we went through the ringer because the Pennsylvania law requires that the outside of a mail-in ballot, the law says, shall be signed and dated. And believe it or not, we were not counting any of the mail-in ballots that weren't dated, because that's what the law says. And last summer, first, a Republican candidate for Senate sued several counties like us that wouldn't count those from the primary. And we said the law doesn't allow us to count them. And ultimately, there was a recount going on. That individual was losing the recount and withdrew his claim. But then the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania told us we had to count them. And we said we can't. They sued us. We went to Commonwealth Court. We lost. It was challenged, not by us. Somebody else came in and challenged. And a week before last year's general election, the Supreme Court reversed the Commonwealth Court and said you cannot count a ballot that isn't dated. Part of the problem, well, it's the law, but here's the other problem. The law doesn't say what date. And so we've said to
July
the
4th, 1776.
the governor, well, here's what happened. A number of voters put their birth date.
Oh.
So is that wrong? Well, technically it isn't.
No.
It just says shall be signed and dated. There also is nothing in the law that provides any way to verify the signature on the mail-in ballots. There's nothing. Whereas if you vote in person, you sign a poll book,
right,
and the poll worker has your signature that's on record.
Yeah, but
so
I've done that, and all you do is you go, that looks okay to me.
Close.
I'm no handwriting analysis.
Those are examples of laws that need to be tweaked or worked on that largely haven't been touched over the last 4
Mr.
years.
Commissioner, get reelected and work on that, would you?
Well, we will.
All right. So now we're going to get to the fun part. Are you ready? Here we go.
I'm ready.
So,
question.
When we spoke to you a couple of years ago, we did not have our Good Government Show questionnaire quite prepared, so this will be new to you. You're a three-term county commissioner. Four-term county commissioner.
Running for my fifth.
Running for your fifth. From where you sit, from your perspective in all these years, define good government.
I believe good government comes down to leaders that care more about addressing problems than what their party thinks or what partisan individuals think. You look at an issue and try to determine, how does this affect the residents in my county? How does this affect the taxpayers that are paying for this? And not just on a short-term basis. I think you have to look long-term. In our Berks County, one of the things we do, and very few counties do this, we do something called 5-year budgeting. So when we look at a budget decision, whether we're adding or taking away, we ask the question, what is the impact, not next year, but 5 years from now? You have to do that. Businesses do that. You make a determination. It's an investment that might cost me money today, makes sense in 5 years. So it's about solving problems. You've heard me say this before, but it's something I heard years ago at the National Association of Counties. There are no red or blue potholes.
Right.
They're potholes.
Yep.
And our constituents expect them to be repaired.
Yep.
That to me is the simplistic essence of good government. It's doing the job that we've been called to do, focusing on what's right, understanding that at times I might have a different way to look at a situation than someone else, but we work it out and we get the job done. And
I don't care who's in office. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I want the pothole filled.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it also can't be about credit. I see from time to time people that, I'm not going to do this unless I get the visibility. There really is no limit to what we can accomplish when it doesn't matter who gets the credit. And we've seen that with our passenger rail efforts so far. We're working together towards a common goal. And I say this all the time. When we have a common vision, it keeps us focused on why we're here. And I think you're much more likely to be successful in what you do when you have that common vision.
How do you judge your success in providing good government?
Well, one way to judge it is, do I get reelected? Although I don't know that is always the best barometer.
Well, every 4 years, but day
every
to day,
4
week
years,
to week, month to month, year to year.
Yeah, I get an employee valuation every 4 years.
Yes.
That in essence is what an election is. But I think there's a couple different ways to do that. There's some of the obvious. You look at your financial. What's the rating of your county? And I'm proud Berks County is in rare company. We have a Moody's AAA bond rating, the highest that you can get. We're one of only 3 of 67 counties in Pennsylvania with that rating, and one of only 4% of the counties in the United States. That is a measurement. It's not the only measurement, but that's a measurement of success. It shows that your county is being financially managed well. But I think there are other measurements as well, looking at your local economy relative to surrounding communities. Again, one of the measurements we look at is growth. A healthy county has consistent growth. And over the last 30 years, Berks County is one of about 13 counties out of 67 that have had continued growth. If you know anything about Pennsylvania, since I was born in 1959, we've lost a congressional seat every 10 years because as a Commonwealth, we lose population. So that's another way to measure. People don't want to move to a community that is in decline. And then you look at other things that we don't necessarily have direct control over, your schools, the quality of your schools in a community. You look, I think, at the services that we're able to provide, and not just the social services, but looking at your areas like parks and recreation. I tell people all the time, I would put our core parks, Grings Mill, the Heritage Center, Antietam Lake Park, which total about 1,200 acres of park and rec, up against almost any parks in any county. So those are some of the things, David, that I think when you look and measure success, that you have to look at from a county standpoint. And the other thing that I would say, as a leader, whenever you come to the point that you say, I don't want to go to this event, go to that event, there's too much going on. Mm-hmm. It might be time, honestly, to move on and do something else. This might strike you as odd. If I had my preference in life, apart from family and apart from the calling that I'm in, and I do see it that way, I'm attracted to programs like Alone from PBS, the guy that moved out, I think it was Alaska, and lived by himself in the wilderness. I find that attractive, much more than living with 10,000 people or 100,000 people in a community. But I love making a difference. And county government, you actually can make a difference on a day-to-day basis, more so than what you can do as a federal legislator or a state legislator.
So let's stay on that for the next question. Goals. How do the constituents, the people, the citizens of Berks County, how do they know? They may not be paying, as close attention as certainly yourselves, but how do they know if they're getting good government? And how should they hold you accountable? They
hold us accountable first by elections. Secondly, by me and my colleagues making ourselves available on a regular basis, not just virtually, but going into the community. We do town halls throughout the year, unscripted. We'll go in, give an update, and open it up to Q&A right from the audience. We take our commissioners meeting, which is historically 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning in downtown Reading, where people, if they want to come to it, they have to drive into Reading, pay to park, come up to the 13th floor.
And, most people are working at 10 a.m. on a Thursday.
Well, 4 times a year, we do those in the evening at municipality in the community. We just did one of those last week. But you connect in that way with the people that you represent. You have to be in and among those individuals, and you have to give them an opportunity to take a shot at you.
How should the people know? I understand what you're saying, but how should the people know if they're getting good government?
Well, here's the other problem that we have nationwide, and that is the decline of the daily newspaper. Berks County is not immune to that. When I took office in 2008, the Reading Eagle was the standard in the county.
Everybody read it. Everybody got it delivered at home.
Well, the circulation was somewhere around 85,000 households.
Okay.
Today, the Reading Eagle was sold from the family that owned it. It's been bought by a company out of Denver, Colorado. It is a shell of itself. They don't even publish their circulation numbers. We estimate they're around 17,000 households today. And it forced us to take some steps. One, in late 2020, we hired a public relations officer for the first time in the history of the county that would really work to get information out to the public. Early this year, we launched our own magazine. And this is not feel-good stories. This magazine, and I have one right here.
I just happen to have?
I just happen to have.
All right.
It's called Berks First.
Okay.
The circulation is about 87,000 households throughout the county. It's free.
CSI Berks and Discover Fresh Food. So you got a couple articles in there so people can
Very
find
good,
out.
but it's county government focused.
Okay, great.
And people, the third issue will be coming out in a couple of weeks, 3 times a year. We find that people really like it because it not only gives them access to county government, there are some feature stories on significant areas. There are QR codes on the cover.
Yep.
But then articles have QR codes. And in the back, we recognize that we have a significant Latino population. So we have a section that is in Spanish.
Oh, all right.
But then online, we have the entire magazine electronically in Spanish. And this is one of the things we found because we listened to our constituents. They were telling us, why didn't I hear anything about this? Why don't I know about this program for veterans? Why can't you do a better job getting this information out? Well, that wasn't an issue 16 years ago when I started, because we had
a daily paper, right?
Local paper, and now that is saying it's in decline is putting it mildly.
Sure. So if people don't like what they see from their government, from you, from your county commissioners, what should they do?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that they should do. One, they should reach out to their officials. And I challenge people, it is easier if you ask questions than if you make accusations. I will tell you, even when I get those nasty communications, I still read them. And I ask the question, is there something here that makes sense, that even reading through the anger, there might be an issue here? The other thing I do is I respond to virtually everyone, phone call, email, postal service communication.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing you should do. Don't assume that every government official is out to get you, that it doesn't care about you. We do. We want to know what people think. We need to hear from you. So that's number one. Number two, if after doing that, you find you have a legitimate disagreement, you kind of have to determine what level is that the value of that disagreement. And I'm not saying that because you disagree with me, you're wrong. You have to determine, is this something that you want to get a group of people together and discuss it and determine how can we better influence the commissioners on this particular issue? And I've had that happen. I will tell you again that it is very hard for any elected official to respond favorably to threats and attacks.
Yes, Alexa.
It's just for two reasons. Number one, I don't want people to think that because they threaten me, I changed. I want them to understand that if they can make a viable argument and defend their position with facts, I'm here to listen, discuss it, and in some cases, change my mind. In worst case scenario, run for office.
All right. Don't threaten, ask. You've served in your office, you said, for many years now. Most people don't really know that much about government. They don't really get that involved. What would you like them to, what's the one thing you'd like people to know about how government works?
I think the one thing I would like people to know is that when they hear or read something about county government, Berks County government, that they're only seeing a small piece of the information. It's taken me years to understand this myself, but I see people react and respond, and they're responding to a couple sentences in the Berks edition of the TV news, or maybe a couple paragraphs in the newspaper, and they don't have all the information, and they just need to ask questions, and we will readily get them the information. Asking questions, to me, is where life in general, you learn. You don't learn a whole lot if you're yelling at your teacher at school. You learn by saying, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand how to solve this math problem. Or, I don't understand why we're studying geography. It's no different in life in general.
I still don't understand why I had to study algebra, but anyway.
Yeah, math was tough for me.
Good. All right. So who is your political hero?
And I don't think there's any question. If you look at my office, you can't see, but over here to the side, I have a picture of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
And all through my life, I've read about a lot of presidents, a lot of figures. George Washington's very significant, but Lincoln to me was a man that very possibly would not have been suited to be president at any other time than the Civil War. His personality, his life experience, the challenging life experience that he had before he became president made him an amazing individual. Not perfect. There is no such thing as a person who never makes a mistake. But what he was able to do, where Washington helped lead and bring the country together in the beginning.
And set a standard for what a president is.
Yes, and for parties.
Yep.
He didn't believe in political parties. It was the only presidency that we had without partisan politics. But Lincoln understood the past and the present at that time, and his reference so many times back to the Declaration of Independence was so important. And I believe that's equally important today. We get so caught up in society today about me. I'm concerned about me. If I don't watch out for me, nobody else will. And we forget the core instruction of the Declaration of Independence is that all people are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But then it says, and for this cause, governments are instituted among people. What cause? To protect those core rights for all people. Lincoln understood that. He evolved through his life on the issue of slavery. But isn't that what we all need to do? So Lincoln, to me, is the most powerful example in history, and I have referenced him often. Team of Rivals, probably one of the best books on Lincoln that I've ever read. Although I recently read a book, and John Meacham, Lincoln, and There Was Light, also an incredible book on Lincoln, and I'd recommend both of them. They both
all right. So Abraham
Lincoln, two different areas.
Okay. It's been a while since we've had a meal. I'm going to come out to Berks. There is a lot of food traditions going on out there. What are we having? Where are we going? What are you serving? What do we have? What's a great Berks dish?
Well, I'm going to say the great Berks dish, people look at Pennsylvania Dutch, and I am Pennsylvania Dutch, but that's not where I would take somebody to eat. We have, the potatoes, vegetables, pie.
Shoe fly pie? What are we doing?
Shoe fly pie. But restaurants in Berks County, I will tell you my favorite is Gracie's 21st Century Cafe. It's absolutely my favorite in eastern Berks County. We have no 5-star restaurants. In my opinion, this is the closest thing to a 5-star restaurant.
All right.
There's some unique locations, Widow Finney's, which you and I were talking about before. That's connected with Judy's on Cherry here in Reading. But Widow's Finney's goes back to the 1800s. And then a little pub that I know you would love called the Ugly Oyster, that's just a couple blocks from the Services Center. It's a classic Irish pub. You feel like you open the door and you walk back in time.
There'll probably be a rugby game on TV, so I'm in. All right, so no shoe fly pie, no potatoes.
You can have shoe fly pie, but you can buy that at the local store. Redner said, great shoe fly pie.
I'm looking for a true Berks County experience. Okay, so you've been a county commissioner for 4 terms, going on the 5th. Is this something you always aspired to? Were you like class president? Did you want to be president? Did you want to be the next Abraham Lincoln, the wise sage of of Berks? What was your plan?
So in college, 2 of my aunts took me to visit Czechoslovakia and Hungary.
Wow.
In 1979. My middle name is Jancek. My grandfather and grandmother immigrated around 1900 from what was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So while the Leinbach side of my family goes back to 1723 in coming to America, my mother's side of the family, I'm only the 2nd generation born in America. My 2 aunts, both of them have since passed away. took me to Czechoslovakia and Hungary to visit relatives. They had been going about every third year since 1959 to communist countries.
Yeah.
And I really came back from that wanting to change the world, wanting to change my country. I jumped into politics right away, volunteered in the Reagan campaign in South Carolina.
Oh.
Super Tuesday in 1980, got to meet him a couple of times. And when I graduated in 1981, you bet I'd figured out what year I would be old enough to run for president. And I came out green as all get out and ran for the endorsement in Chester County for the state house and didn't get the endorsement. I backed the man that did, Art Hershey. Art that night asked me to run his campaign. My wife and I ran his campaign. He won in 82. He won in 84, and he served until 2008 as a state rep from Chester County. But I never saw myself in county government. I stayed involved in politics, but worked in the private sector up until 2007, and really became aware, primarily because of an incumbent county commissioner at the time, had built a reputation for being very arrogant, having a temper that often was displayed in public.
So you did what you advised other people to do. You said,
I ran.
I'm gonna make a difference, and I'm gonna run myself.
But I couldn't. Even then, I thought I knew what a county commissioner did. It was far more complex than I had anticipated. To be completely honest, when I ran for county commissioner and once I was elected, I was already looking at what's next.
Okay.
And I thought about running for governor about probably 8 or 9 years ago. I actually brought a consultant in, and I concluded I love what I do. I make a difference in people's lives almost every day. And I, Lord willing, will be here and finish my career as a county commissioner here in Berks County. I enjoy it very, very much.
Well, I was talking with somebody who said, somewhere out there, there's a kid that's sitting in a classroom right now and probably a civics class thinking, oh, I want to be president, or I want to be governor, or I want to be senator. There's no kid sitting there thinking, I want to be a county commissioner.
And part of that's because of our education system.
All right,
we teach a fair amount about how the federal government works, how a bill becomes law,
right?
President, a senator, a congressperson, and to a lesser degree about state
Local
government.
Politics, yeah.
Nobody learns anything about county government.
All right. So the name of the show is The Good Government Show. We like to end on some good government projects. If you could, Commissioner Leinbach, just give me a brief example of a good government project that you've worked on lately.
Well, other than the two that I've already mentioned, which I think are great nonpartisan good government projects, working on the restoration of passenger rail service, actively working on regrowing the Reading Regional Airport. I think looking at our Parks Department, actually, I'm going to back off. Our Ag Department is a great example. In the last year, we have restructured our Ag Department to become, it's a little bit larger, but able to address publicly more of our ag needs in our community. We're an unusual county, almost 430,000 people, fourth largest city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But that city, Reading, is geographically central to the county. You go 5 miles in almost any direction and you're in farmland. Okay. And our number one industry by gross revenue, so that's production, processing, wholesale and retail, is agriculture in a really big way. Some of the things that might surprise you would be ducks. One of the largest duck growers and processors in the United States is based right here in Berks County,
I like a good roast duck.
So we have expanded our role with our county ag department. We have a new ag director, Emily Wangolo, and we are partnering with our Greater Reading Chamber Alliance in a contractual relationship. They are working with us to really push the ag component in the chamber business area, which had not been the case for a couple of decades. And then thirdly, we have started implementing a new economic development strategy for the county called Imagine Berks, and it also has an ag component to it. One of the things in our ag arena, we've preserved now over 78,000 acres of active production agriculture land in Berks County. We are number 2 in the Commonwealth in total preserved ag land and number 3 in the United States. So working to focus on growing our ag department and working with not just farmers, but processors, producers, wholesalers, and retailers has been very important. We launched about
what are we growing
ago.
out there? What's the farmland being used for primarily?
So most of the crops that are grown are for chickens, ducks, cattle, dairy, and hogs. Those are the main animals. And we actually are a net importer of grain. We don't grow enough grain for all of the needs. So mostly but vineyards. We have 9 different vineyards here in Berks County. Orchards. We have several large orchard operations here in the county. And more interesting, in our county, we're a little over 800 square miles. We have over 200 variations on farm stores. So they could be something like Weaver's Orchard, which has a large farm store, Wayhar, farm
is it
store.
Apples, pears? What are we growing in the orchards?
Weaver's, everything. They actually have a northern kiwi that they grow.
Really?
A variety of apples, cherries, peaches, grapes. But then they have a farm store where they have a number of other products that they produce.
Okay.
Wayhar is a dairy. And so their anchor is dairy products from their dairy. But we have a map at countyofberks.com on our ag department that lists over 200 farm stores here in Berks County from all across the county. And I was shocked when I found out there were that many stores. We have a neighbor, LaFavor's. They raise beef, but they also just added organic chicken from another grower that they have. And I tell people all the time, organic isn't nearly as important as buying local. And so our focus on our ag department and our ag community has been very beneficial for our local ag producers. And it's something that we've helped make available.
All right, so here's what we're doing. I'm going to come. We're going to have a roast duck and we're going to get apple pie. All right.
You bet.
All right. That's all local grown. Well, once again, Christian, it is always a pleasure chatting with you and catching up with you and hearing about what's going on in Berks County. So thank you for that. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for doing all you do to tell the story of good county government on the Good Government Show.
We're working. That's our goal. Good luck in the election, and we will talk to you in your fifth term as county commissioner. So good luck. Thanks for that, and we will talk again.
Thank you, David. We'll see you.
The Good Government Show is sponsored by Ourco. That means our community. Ourco has found a way to make government even more effective. Ourco provides a platform that blends in-person and digital interactions, and that connects people with their government. Their mobile app transforms meaningful conversations into reliable data, and the result is actionable insights that inspires a positive change. It's sort of like having a flash poll. Do you want to know if the community would rather have a dog park or a bike trail? Ourco can get you an answer immediately from the folks in your community. With Ourco, you can engage your citizens or any group, learn what they want, and build programs and policies that advance your county, your job creators, and your constituents. So visit Ourco.com, that's Ourco.com, and learn how they do it. And while you're there, book a demonstration. County leaders more focused on problem solving. That's what we like to hear on the Good Government Show. As Christian and many leaders have said, when that pothole needs to be fixed, citizens don't care what party you're in, they just want the hole fixed. Christian also said there is a way to approach civic leaders if you want to see something changed. He said, don't scream, ask questions. This is a recurring theme we hear on the Good Government Show. It can sometimes be so easy just to put out a complaint against your elected officials, but reaching out, asking questions, and listening, that goes a lot farther to real solutions. It's always good to check in with Christian and hear how things are going. When two people can have a good conversation, it helps everyone look at government in a different and I hope a better way. If you agree, and if you're listening, you must, tell your friends about the Good Government Show. Like us, share us, and comment on all our social media pages. That's how we can keep telling these great stories and meeting inspiring government leaders. Thanks for listening. Till next time, I'm Dave Martin, and this is the Good Government Show. The Good Government Show and A Conversation With is produced by Valley Park Productions. Jim Ludlow, David Martin, and David Snyder are the executive producers. Our editor and producer is Jason Stershic. This is The Good Government Show. Thanks for listening.